Welcome to the lecture on service marketing, and after this lecture we will be able to learn the following objectives. Understand service marketing and its characteristics, discuss about intangibility, heterogeneity, describe service quality and service design, understand the 7 P's of services marketing, explain services marketing mix, and differentiate between goods and services. Concept of services: activities, benefits and satisfactions which are offered for sale or are provided in connection with the sale of goods. The defining characteristics of a service are intangibility. Services are intangible and do not have a physical existence. Hence, services cannot be touched, held, tasted or smelled. This is most defining feature of a service and that which primarily differentiates it from a product. Also, it poses a unique challenge to those engaged in marketing a service, as they need to attach tangible attributes to an otherwise intangible offering. Heterogeneity, variability. Given the very nature of services, each service offering is unique and cannot be exactly repeated even by the same service provider. While products can be mass-produced and be homogeneous, the same is not true of services. For example, all burgers of a particular flavor at McDonald's are almost identical. However, the same is not true of the service rendered by the same counter staff consecutively to 2 customers. Perishability. Services cannot be stored, saved, returned or resold once they have been used. Once rendered to a customer, the service is completely consumed and cannot be delivered to another customer. For example, a customer dissatisfied with the services of a barber cannot return the service of the haircut that was rendered to him. At the most, he may decide not to visit that particular barber in the future. Inseparability, simultaneity of production and consumption. This refers to the fact that services are generated and consumed within the same time frame. For example, a haircut is delivered to and consumed by a customer simultaneously, unlike, say, a takeaway burger, which the customer may consume even after a few hours of purchase. Moreover, it is very difficult to separate a service from the service provider. Example, the barber is necessarily a part of the service of a haircut that he is delivering to his customer. Types of services. Core services. A service that is the primary purpose of the transaction. For example, a haircut or the services of lawyer or teacher. Supplementary services. Services that are rendered as a corollary to the sale of a tangible product. For example, home delivery options offered by restaurants above a minimum bill value. Difference between goods and services. The fundamental differences between physical goods and services are as shown on this chart here. Intangibility. In this section, we will study about the main features of service, which is intangibility. The intangibility of services is a central concept in marketing services. The distinguishing feature of a service is that its intangible aspect is dominant. These intangible features are: a service cannot be touched, precise standardization is not possible, there is no ownership transfer, a service cannot be patented, production and consumption are inseparable, there are no inventories of the service, the consumer is a part of the production process, so the delivery system must go to the market or the customer must come to the delivery system. Inseparability. After studying intangibility, we will move further and study about the inseparability. Service inseparability is an important property which basically states that services are produced and consumed at the same time and cannot be isolated from their providers. Inseparability of production and consumption means The production of a service cannot be separated from its consumption by customers. Production and consumption are simultaneous. Although the manufacturer of a tangible good may never see an actual customer, customers often must be present during the production of a service and cannot take the service home. Because of inseparability, customers not only want a specific type of service, but expect it to be provided in a specific way by a specific individual. Services often cannot be separated from the person of the seller. A corollary of this is that creating or performing the service may occur at the same time as full or partial consumption of it. Goods are produced, sold and consumed, whereas services are sold and then produced and consumed. Services cannot be separated from service providers. Perishability. I hope you understood what we just discussed. Now we will move further and study about perishability. Perishability refers to the fact that services cannot be saved, stored, resold or returned. A seat on an airplane or in a restaurant, an hour of a lawyer's time or telephone line capacity not used or purchased cannot be reclaimed and used or resold at a later time. Perishability is in contrast to goods that can be stored in inventory or resold another day or even returned if the consumer is unhappy. Demand forecasting and creative planning for capacity utilization are therefore important and challenging decision areas. The fact that services cannot typically be returned or resold also implies a need for strong recovery strategies when things do go wrong. For example, although a bad haircut cannot be returned, the hairdresser can and should have strategies for recovering the customer's goodwill if and when such a problem occurs. Implications of perishability for marketing managers. Because of perishability, inventory is nil. Demand forecasting becomes the crux of services marketing. Along with demand, creative thinking and capacity utilization is necessary. Along with this, there is the need of a strong backup plan anytime your plans backfire. Perishability means that the unused service capacity from one time period cannot be stored for future use. Service providers and marketers cannot handle supply-demand problems through production scheduling and inventory techniques. Service providers can plan for demand which fluctuates according to day of the week, time of day or season. Heterogeneity. Let's discuss another characteristic of service, which is heterogeneity. Heterogeneity of services was believed to be problematic as it implied a lack of control over what was being offered. The person-to-person interactions that characterized service encounters meant that standardization of services was difficult to achieve. Standardization of services was considered a desirable goal, and so a factory metaphor was often employed. Efficiency, productivity, and process became part of the language of services. As part of the inherent variability, attention focused on contact personnel, those employees that interact with the customer during a service encounter. Therefore, both the operations and human resource management functions were brought together in a desire to make services more homogeneous, drew attention to the internal marketing task of services firms. It is often difficult to achieve standardization of output in services. Even though standard systems may be used, for example, to handle a flight reservation, to book in a customer's car for service, or to quote for insurance on his life. Each unit of a service may differ from other units. Franchise operations, like McDonald's, attempt to ensure a standard of conformity, but ultimately it is difficult to ensure the same level of output in terms of quality. Heterogeneity also results because no two customers are precisely alike. Each will have unique demands or experience the service in a unique way. Thus, the heterogeneity connected with services is largely the result of human interaction. Service quality. Now we will move further and study about service quality. Service quality is taken to be that which is perceived by customers when comparing their expectation of a service with the actual service performance. So they were developing models of perceived service quality. Given this basis, research concentrated on identifying the influencers or determinants of service quality, including the factors that drive customer expectations. Perishability offered their GAPS model of perceived service quality, a model that has been reproduced in most services marketing texts in the following 25 years. Like Grand Ruse, it has a focus on the gap between expected service and perceived service and on what are the antecedents of expected service. However, Perishability go on to identify 4 further gaps that in combination contribute to Gap 5. They are Gap 1, Customer Expectation Management Perception Gap. Gap 2, Management Perception Service Quality Specification Gap. Gap 3, Service Quality Specifications Service Delivery Gap. Gap 4, Service Delivery External Communications Gap, similar to the Promises Performance Gap identified earlier by Grand Ruse. The attraction of Perishability GAPS model is that it provided managers with clear directions as to how to improve service quality by identifying and closing undesirable gaps. The other important development in this paper was a detailed elaboration of the determinants of perceived service quality based data gathered from focus groups of customers from 4 types of services: retail banking, credit card, securities brokerage, and product repair and maintenance. Service design. Our next topic for discussion is service design. The notion of a customer journey with multiple customer touch points within an organization during service encounters was the catalyst for research on the design of the service process. The instigator of this strand research was Shostak, who developed the technique of service blueprinting. Here, the components of the service are identified as seen through the eyes of customers and represented as a process flowchart. Each component represents a customer touch point which can result in a potential service failure if the interaction at the touch point proves to be unsatisfactory. For the full blueprint, the service support systems for each component, together with their interrelationships, which are normally out of sight from the customer, are drawn below the line of customer visibility. The full blueprint therefore consists of the flow chart of the components of the process that are visible to the customer, supported by a visual depiction of the series of back office support systems for the customer journey. The service blueprint can be developed into a service map if more detail is required. The service blueprint map technique can reveal more clearly the potential for service failure and enable organizations to plan for service recovery. Technology-based service. In this section, we will study about the technology-based service. The rapid developments of ICT during this period, especially the increased access by customers to the internet, resulted in the need for research on technology-based services. As customers engaged more with technology-based systems, it was recognized that such interactions would play a greater part in their experiences. The internet and its effect. It became evident also that interpersonal service encounters were being affected by the ability and willingness for consumers to seek information through the internet. Customers of professional services were beginning to challenge the advice of professional service providers based on information they had obtained through the internet and more accessible social networks. Dysfunctional behavior in service encounters. Other aspects of interpersonal service encounters were also being reassessed. The assumption that both the contact personnel and customers were motivated to produce favorable service outcomes was questioned as evidence came to light of deliberate dysfunctional behavior by both parties. Customer equity. The technological advances of the time resulted in organizational relationship marketing and CRM initiatives aimed at personalizing customer service, given the widespread availability of customer databases. This in turn led to a focus on attempting to increase customer lifetime values (CLV). The firm's tangible assets are valuable only to the extent to which they enhance the combined value of the firm's customer assets, or customer equity has much resonance with later work on consumer operant resource integration that is a fundamental component of subsequent deliberations on the service dominant logic of marketing. E-service. For many of the reasons above, e-service became a central element of the strategies of a large number of organizations. This is underpinned by how service is to be delivered through the World Wide Web. Services marketing mix. I hope you understand what we just discussed. Now we will move further and study about services marketing mix. Marketing mix is the key concept in the marketing task, a selection of services developed to offer customers a choice within a particular range. Marketing mix helps to position the library or information service very firmly in the perceptions of their communities served, the wider community for the public library, academic community for the academic library, or the clients and customers for the business or specialist information service. The factors of marketing mix are divided into four main parts: product, distribution, price and promotion. The 7 P's of services. Marketing services are very different from products. 7P frameworks is one of the most popular frameworks for deciding a marketing strategy, right from strategy formulation to actual implementation. Product. A product is anything that can be offered to a market to satisfy a need or want. Place. It represents the distribution channels that an organization utilizes to convey its own physical products or services to the end users. Price. It is a flexible and dominant element which determines the revenue, profitability, market share for the organization. From the customer's viewpoint, price is a determinant factor because most customers, depending on their income level, consider the price before they purchase the product. Monetary price implies the payment of certain sum by the customer. Promotion. This involves the communication that marketer engages in with the customers in order to acknowledge the product. People. They are the staffs who occupy the key position in influencing customers' perceptions of product quality because of the simultaneity of production and consumption and services, the continuing education. Physical evidence. It is the environment in which the service is delivered and any tangible goods that facilitate the performance and communication of the service. Customers look for clues to the likely quality of a service also by inspecting the tangible evidence. For example, prospective customers may look to the design of learning materials, the appearance of facilities, staff, and so on. Process. Process means procedures, mechanism, and flow of activities by which a service is acquired. Summary. Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learnt in this lecture. The perceived service quality concept suggests that the service quality perception is formed by the disconfirmation between expected and experienced service. Economic history tells us that all developing nations have invariably experienced a shift from agriculture to industry and then to the service sector as a mainstay of the economy. Services are essentially intangible. It is often not possible to taste, feel, see, hear or smell services before they are purchased. Heterogeneity of services was believed to be problematic as it implied a lack of control over what was being offered. Networks of relationships and interactions include those that occur with employees within an organization.